What's going on, Dragons? Happy Friday, and welcome to episode 15 of the UrCast, your weekly Friday Night Magic pre-show. I'm your co-host, Cory, and with me this week is none other than Will and Rowan's third sibling, the forgotten triplet, Cole.
Thanks, Cory. Yeah, it's really hard being the middle child. I never got the same attention that the Will and Rowan did, but I'm happy to be here. And with us this week is a very special guest. In fact, she's been a permanent guest on the podcast called My Love Life, the better half of Love and Mana, the Gruel Girl herself. Erika, go ahead and say hello.
Hello. Thank you guys so much for having me on the podcast today. I'm really excited to talk about the things that are coming up.
Yeah, and hey, thanks for joining us. So, first question for you guys. So you are both jointly Love and Mana MTG. So who's the Love? Who's the Mana?
She's Love.
And I'm Mana.
And that is rehearsed. That's so smoothly rehearsed. But I do have one other question before we get into our main topic today for you guys. So Cole, well, it's a two-parter. So Cole, you were the very first guest on the podcast.
That's right.
Do you have any advice for Erika coming into the just the dungeon that is the UrCast?
Well, you're going to want to equip your heaviest armor to, protect yourself from any strong monsters you find down there. Also, take it easy, stay loose and nimble, and we should be able to make it through.
And then second part to that, and Erika, you can hop in, to confirm, because I don't think Cole will ever confirm. So when he first came on, we were talking about his favorite deck, right? He's like, oh, the Scarab God, love the Scarab God. And he brought up the fact that you love and kind of embody this Gruel Girl mentality, right?
Yes, very much so.
So the question we had for Cole was, is he or is he not then a Dimir daddy?
Ooh, that is a great question. Is he a Dimir daddy? I would say I think he absolutely loves the Scarab God, but he is very much so, he loves mono black. Like, I think that mono black is probably his bread and butter. So I would say no, but I also want to
Oh,
say yes.
We'll have to come up
but
with
I
a
already
good
had
acronym for that one. Maybe a mono black monsieur.
first off, it's Black Baddie. If you're not gonna be a Dimir daddy, you're gonna be a Black Baddie. I already have the merchandise like pre-printed, just FYI. It's
I'd like to go on
shipping.
the record that I did not endorse that name.
Yeah.
But this week, you guys, we're going to be talking about the most controversial of all Magic the Gathering topics, and that is Universes Beyond. You know it, you love it, you hate it, maybe?
Definitely love it, I think.
I think it's like you said, it's really controversial. A lot of people are on the fence about whether or not they're excited for the future of Universes Beyond, or if they wish we could go back in time and that it never happened.
Yeah, fair enough. So they came out, just to give everyone like a quick overview of Universes Beyond, if you're a first-time listener or you're just getting into Magic yourself. So they came out, what, 2018, 2019, I want to say, with The Walking Dead.
Which at the time was not considered walking. It was not considered part of Universes Beyond. That was a retroactive
Right.
added.
Right. So The Walking Dead came out as a 5 or 6 card set in a secret lair, then was retroactively included as the origin of Universes Beyond when that sort of became more of a brand for them. And since then, over the years, we've seen more and more inclusion of different IPs, different franchises, and things of that nature. Um, but let's gauge everyone. Let's gauge the room first. Universes Beyond. Erika, let's kick it off. Do you like it? Do you dislike it? Do you think should never have happened?
So, as somebody who has only been playing Magic for about a year, I absolutely love it. I think it's a really great way to get people who want to learn how to play Magic but maybe don't know how to get started. And if they can find something that they connect with or already have a connection with, I think Universes Beyond is just an incredible way to bring new people into learning how to play the game, understanding the language that is Magic, and just overall being able to enjoy it because they already have a connection to it.
Okay, Cole.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I agree wholeheartedly with what Erica said. It's for Lord of the Rings is a really great example of that. That was a set that has IP that people have heard of or have read or have watched those movies over and over for the last 20 years. And if they haven't if they are not familiar with Magic, this is a really great middle ground for them to dip their toes in with content that they don't have to put themselves in the role of somebody playing a high fantasy game. They're able to sit down with game pieces that they recognize, and maybe that gets them hooked and they want to explore more, and that gets more people playing Magic, which is that's the main goal, is to bring people in. So I really like it.
Another thing I wanted to mention too is that, with Magic, a lot of things that people tend to do is have their self expression through their cards, and being able to have Universes Beyond allows people to express other interests in their lives beyond Magic, which is really cool.
Oh yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think I'm in the same boat as both of you, which is I I'm completely okay with it. Now, I will say we can talk about it a little more. I think maybe the initial rollout, especially with not Street Fighter, but the Walking Dead stuff, maybe a little clunky, but I think as the years have gone by at this point, with each release, they've gotten better and better about it. Um, so for me, the first set they came out with, which was the Walking Dead, was Secret Lair exclusive, and it went several years before we saw any kind of reprints out of it. So I think that was a little rough, but I think everything since then has been very accessible. I do agree that it gives you a good chance to kind of express your personality in your deck, especially if you're a newer player. Which kind of sets stand out to you guys, or which ones have you enjoyed the most? You couldn't care less about.
Well, we split all these sets into a couple of different categories, which, like you brought up with The Walking Dead, kind of extend to the level of accessibility for each of these sets. You're starting with like Secret Lair cards. You're going
Mhm.
to be, already price restricting your cards behind a $40 price wall, $30 price wall. So it's already, people are going to see less of these in circulation, and you're not going to play against as many of them, because if you didn't hook up your credit card and sign away $40 in the few months that it was revealed, you just unfortunately aren't going to get access to those cards at a realistic price tag. Obviously you can always proxy it, but it was just a little bit more exclusive versus the set cards that are released in either booster packs or commander sealed product that you can buy in your local supermarket.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I think that's the good.
I was just gonna say, not only that, but also I think when they first started doing this, like it's so new, such a new concept to bring all these other worlds into Magic that it wasn't gonna be perfect from the start. So I feel like a lot of these minor setbacks that we're seeing with all of it is,
Mhm.
they're gonna evolve and it's gonna get smoother and it's gonna get better the more they come out with these sets.
Yeah, for sure. Now, let me ask you this, because I think you bring up a good point about like accessibility, right? And that's not just a universes beyond thing. That's just a Magic card in general from the reserve list onward. How accessible should these cards be? How often should they be reprinted? Things of that nature. So, do you think maybe doing secret layers is not the right way to go, or do you think maybe we still have some secret layers?
Well, I think they are. I mean, right now we have two secret layer available. The Ash and the Evil Dead, as well as there's a few more that are
Hmm.
certainly like that format, but they've made one pretty distinct difference. I think they saw how much negative reception The Walking Dead received, or that was a really controversial set because these cards were mechanically unique. And they were cards that at the time had no other alternatives. With a lot of
Hmm.
these other sets that they released, like immediately after The Walking Dead, you'll see the Godzilla cards, which were reskins of cards that already existed, meaning you didn't, and they were included in booster packs. So you didn't have to, either pay an exorbitant price tag. You could just pull them in a pack, or if you're not a fan of secret layers and you kind of want to keep Magic in the Magic universe, it gave you an alternative that you could either, like Erica was saying earlier, kind of express yourself and your love for that IP, or you could run it the square way, play a little within the rules, and just play a Magic card for a Magic card.
And going off of that as well is I think it's important to have or like the original art that's attached to the magic lore because it could also play into the accessibility thing because it's if
Hmm.
you don't have if you have a limited amount of cards that are in circulation then they're just going to be so incredibly expensive and so just being able to have an alternative option that does a similar thing or does the same thing is so important for people to just be able to play the game who just want to play the game and don't have to pay um like the high prices for that for
Yeah,
the flavor. Oh,
yeah, for sure. And I think that's a crucial point because when you look at the early stuff, they got the most flack, which would be what Street Fighter would be, The Walking Dead, stuff like that. They were mechanically unique. You could only get them through that one specific channel for what 2 to 3 months in Secret Lair, and all the stuff you've seen recently is pretty much reskins. I mean, the Walking or not the Walking Dead, but the Evil Dead are all reskins. The Princess Bride's a reskin. I would even say the D&D set, which was the last Secret Lair I think before that. Those might as well just be reskins because it's D&D and it's all owned by Wizards of the Coast. They can reprint those pretty much at will. Whereas I don't know what kind of hurdles they have to jump through to reprint something that has Rick from The Walking Dead plastered on it.
Well, kind of going along with that, I think there's a point to be made about the difference between universe beyond cards that kind of fit inherently within the MTG universe and
Hmm.
cards that are either depictions of our current, real world, or something that might kind of take you out of that high fantasy realm. Like, comparing the Transformer cards, which are, cartoon robots, and some of their art are literally the old cartoon pictures,
Hmm.
versus something like, the Warhammer universe, where you have, wizards and even the Necron robots are still somewhat a more universe within version of robots than Transformers, just because it's still kind of fits that high fantasy. There's still, monks and archdruids and things like that.
Yeah. So let's look at this then. So if you have that set that pulls you out of the Magic universe, for whatever reason, maybe it's not like on flavor, or maybe it's just an IP that doesn't appeal to you. Like, let's say right now, the Evil Dead or the Princess Bride are the ones that are being sold, and obviously we've got Doctor Who. By the way, Doctor Who comes out same day we're launching this. But let's say you like me, so I've never watched a single Doctor Who episode. I understand the premise. I've just never watched it. So to me, it doesn't have that appeal. So when you see those things that aren't necessarily franchises that speak to you, I mean, do you feel like bummed out that hey, they're printing Jurassic Park and maybe you don't like Jurassic Park, or do you feel like you wish that they had something to go along with it? Like, hey, Doctor Who's coming out, but at the same time, I wish they made a non-Doctor Who, in universe product at the same time, or do you just not care?
so for me personally, I feel like there's already so many cards in Magic they're already pumping out so many cards in a year span that it's like
Ain't that the truth?
yeah. It's like you're gonna get your fill. You know, you shouldn't feel like you are
Mm,
losing out and you're missing out on like prime Wizards of the Coast, Magic of the Gathering, like products because they will come. They already have them there. They're already on their way here, and you know, having these universes beyond is just it's more for like people that are connecting to that. But I don't feel like you should feel like you're missing out because they are producing that.
Like, even though right now
yeah.
you may not be a Doctor Who fan, the product that
Mm,
you love, or the IP that you love, that will one day turn around and become a product and somebody else isn't a fan of it. So even though it doesn't, doesn't rock your boat, it still rocks somebody else's boat, and it happens to be a pretty large, maybe a large percentage of the fan base.
Absolutely. And I know for me personally, I'm very excited for Doctor Who to come out. I am a fan.
mm.
So I'm
Yeah, I
excited.
think I've always been of the mindset, like me personally, that not every set is for every person, but every set is for somebody. So like for me, I'm digging the Doctor Who stuff, not because it's my flavor or my cup of tea, but I'm a fan of Magic and the cards look sweet. The art's great, some of the effects are really cool. So even though the 12th versus 13th versus 10th Doctor, that means nothing to me. It's still you can still be excited about it, and if you're not into Doctor Who, I mean, don't worry because Wizards of the Coast, like you said, is just shoveling product out the door, so next week will be your turn.
Right. They'll come out with something in the next week or month or so. So it's like the product is going to be there regardless of this Doctor Who
Mhm.
set or whatever, Jurassic Park or Lord of the Rings.
You kind of said
I
something
do
in
have a
there.
question.
Oh, well,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention that I do. You kind of said something I liked in terms of the mechanically. Not even if, or even if you don't like the IP, just kind of being able to be excited about the level of creativity that goes into giving those that IP like flavor and life, pushes Magic in a really creative direction. Like, a lot of this Doctor Who stuff is just really awesome, suspend mechanics that are being,
Mhm.
improved upon, which, even if you don't like Doctor Who, you probably like suspend cards or casting stuff from exile. So there's kind of an overlap with, if you just treat it like a Magic product, you don't have to, be a fan to benefit from a lot of these cards.
Oh yeah, like for me, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but there's a blue instant that target it turns a target creature into a face down 2/2, basically a morph creature. And I don't care that it's a 2/2 Cyberman because I love Kenra's transformation, you know?
Uh-huh.
So I'm gonna love this too. But I do have a question for Erica, which is I know you said you're a newer player, but you've been playing for what, a year and a half or so now?
Just a little bit over a year. I think it was a full year in July.
Okay. So when you look at something like Doctor Who that kind of dropped today, right? For you, I know we talked a little bit before we started recording, and you were saying like one of the things for you that you're still kind of adapting to or learning is looking at a card from this set without getting your hands on it yet and kind of going, "Oh, this has great synergy with stuff from other sets or other cards that are floating around out there." So when you see like Doctor Who just got announced, what's more appealing to you that you see cool, unique mechanics or the fact that it's like, "Hey, this looks so flavorful to that universe?"
Absolutely. So I think for me specifically, it's the latter. I think it's the flavor. I think it's being able to see like the references from the show. And it's being able to see how they were able to not only get moments from the show, but how they were able to grab those details and turn them into sweet mechanics was just so well done.
Mhm.
And as a newer player, I can read the card, I can understand what it does, but it is just a little bit more difficult for me how the synergies are going to be playing together, and
Mhm.
kind of really how the deck is supposed to play overall versus saying like that's a really fun card. So I think for me specifically, I'm just so excited to see, so many references from the show, see characters that I absolutely love, see the different combinations. One of the things Cole and I were talking about actually is that with the doctors, you can have companions as their
Mhm.
commander partners. And because of that, you can just create endless combinations of doctors with companions. And it's just amazing because it's so on theme with the show.
Yeah. I think that's interesting too because I know a lot of people, especially in like in the Magic community, for lack of a better like phrasing of it, they'll see a card on spoiler season and they're already like, "Oh, this card from 10 years ago, it all syncs together." Like River Song, for example, her whole mechanic is that you draw from the bottom of the deck. And there was a bunch of people, they're already building decks about, well, if I reveal this card and I put the other 3 cards on the bottom of my deck, I can stack the bottom of my deck to draw from it. But it's also very flavorfully unique because, she travels, like, reverse to the doctor.
Correct. Yes. So her
Mhm,
timeline is in reverse to the doctor, and it's very cool because the first time he meets her, she sacrifices her life, and then the last time that he meets her is the first time she's meeting him. So it's very cool. Yeah.
mhm. So
It's
you think,
fun.
though, that
Oh, well, it's really fun the way that they incorporate the storyline into the mechanics and make it kind of intuitive. Where you're not going to see somebody a character and be like, "What? Why does that?" You can kind of justify a lot of these abilities because of the stories of the characters and either the struggles that they go through or the power that they have.
mm. So do you like, going back to this whole reskin versus new mechanics then, do you think it's almost better in that sense that they make new mechanics for all these cards in order to make it more flavorfully on point?
Yes, and I also think that flavor is a huge part of it, but I also think that it gives Wizards of the Coast the creativity and kind of
Mhm,
like the inspiration to create these new mechanics. I'm sure they have tons and tons and tons of, people working on mechanics overall, but I can't help but to think that while using, Lord of the Rings or Doctor Who or Jurassic Park, that, following the storylines and finding like very like powerful moments in these stories, to use that and to create mechanics out of it is just so incredibly creative and unique, and I'm sure that it gives the game a lot more impact, I think.
mhm. Now the downside to that, like, just to play devil's advocate for a second,
Right.
downside to that is you have a lot of people in the community that might feel that if you let's say Lord of the Rings, because that was a huge set as far as just quantity of new cards.
Right.
Um, they might feel like, "Hey, if I like this card, but I want it in a universes within setting, like, because it's mechanically unique, the odds of me getting my hands on it is slim to none." Because maybe you'll get a universes within of the 5 Walking Dead cards because that's like an easier thing to adapt as opposed to the 100 plus Lord of the Rings commanders all getting reskinned. Do you think there's any drawback in that sense?
I think it's one of those things where you kind of just have to pick and choose for yourself.
Mhm,
I understand, or like I see both sides of the coin where, you might just simply not be into the theme that it is, or
mhm,
you, like you said, you might just not be able to get your hands on it because of the limited quantity of those products. But I think that the neat thing about Magic is that if you can't, or if you don't want to get a specific card that does a specific thing, but you still want it to do something similar to that, you can still find similar enough cards. There at the end of the day, there are so many magic cards out there, and it's up to you, the deck builder, to really, justify every single card in your deck and say, this is what's going to optimize for what I want it to do. And if the flavor is something that you don't want it to be a part of, then you have to kind of like weigh that for yourself.
Yeah, you have to compromise. I think a huge example of that is the One Ring. I mean, it's a card that can theoretically go into every deck, and they gave it to gave it out a lot in all of those bundles, and made it kind of accessible, even though it was this really rare chase card, and it is still pretty expensive. Uh, but if you were against the universe beyond movement, it might be kind of frustrating that in your play group, if you're seeing everybody's playing the One Ring, everybody's playing these cards, and you're almost kind of forced to uh go in on universes beyond to or otherwise watch your deck diminish in power.
Here's my frustration, right? My personal frustration. I want one card, one freaking card out of all these, because my wife plays a Kyler deck, and I want to get Rick because it's like the perfect include into any human themed deck. But Rick is ridiculously expensive. Then they reprinted Rick in Wild's Eldraine with, I think his name's Gray Mountain now. Gray Mountain also like $45. What's going on there? Are we gonna print him into the ground? Because all the other reprints are like 40 cents now. Like, you can get all the Street Fighter ones for under $1. But for whatever reason, this one single one is holding ridiculous value, and therefore we should cancel all of Universes Beyond.
I do really like the universe within version of Lucille, which was the bonus card on the secret layer. So you might not even get this when you order the secret layer. So it's a pretty hard to come by card. But the universe within version that they printed, Gisa's favorite shovel, just feels like a really a cute nod to the fact that they're making it's not as serious as it seems. Like, they're able to make some funny jokes and kind of skirt the lines of that fourth wall humor.
Cory, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So I absolutely see where you're coming from with the Rick card being so expensive, because that's a pretty penny right there for sure. But I guess my
And because I'm
question,
right.
yeah, and my question to you is, are there any other cards that could do the same thing that he does? And you might have to like supplement like one or two cards that would maybe not even be half the value of that one Rick card.
um, well, as you know, all my decks are a 7. So
Right.
therefore, I mean, I can swap out any card and it'll stay a 7. Um, so I want to get the card only because first off, for those guys listening, I'm joking, of course. Like, I'm
Yeah.
not I'm not that bent out of shape about Rick, to be honest, because Mana Crypt is still way up there in price, and I'm not bent out of shape about that either. Um, so I want to get the card only from a optimization of fun, right? Like, for me, I don't build decks that are like, hey, this is going to be the most powerful deck or whatever. I build a deck to do the thing as best as possible and as guaranteed as possible for each time. So, if I sit down with like Mirum's the dragon deck I just built. If I sit down with Mirum 10 times, I want to be able to get out my dragons 10 times, And if that card gets me there, then yeah, I'd like it in there. But yes, there are always like alternatives. So depending on what your restriction is, like if your restriction is price, I mean, there's always lower price options. If your restriction is flavor, I mean, you can always go more flavorful. And ironically, usually the cheaper cards are more flavorful, at least from a humor standpoint. Um, but what I do think they're getting better at, and I think this is the main drawback on the whole secret lair thing, was accessibility. But I think as we already addressed, so their secret lairs seem to be getting more and more restricted to like reskins or like the D&D movie stuff that is an IP they actually own and they can reprint over and over again. But for you guys, I mean, is there anything that you prefer out of them? Like, do you like secret lairs where you go, hey, maybe I got to drop $40, but I'm guaranteed to get the cards I want? Do you like it more where it's like sets within, sort of like Transformers, where they went, hey, we're making an artifact themed set, and we're gonna put these weird artifact themed IPs in there, even if it wasn't like the most flavorful fit, but it was like I guess, a thematic fit? Or do you just like having a full blown set?
Personally, I'm kind of an enthusiast of secret layers. I am fond of the art. I like the mystery, aspect of the secret card, and there's some excitement there. But I know that a lot of these cards in secret layers are also available for significantly cheaper than if you maybe you don't want to spend the $40, but you're okay spending an $8 on a singular card. Obviously, that's not the
Mm,
case with like Rick, but I think it ends up happening with a lot of the non IP related secret layers, so it's worth looking into. But personally, I'm a bigger fan of the commander sets, the full like give me booster packs, give me commander decks. I just want more magic, and I think having that design space to take risks and make wacky cards that are maybe really bad and playable, 2v or 1v1 format, but can just add that level of flavor to your personal decks, or maybe it's just a really fun, unique effect that would have taken years to get developed if when they're finally getting around to that design space. So
mm.
I like it. I loved the Warhammer decks. I loved Lord of the Rings, and I'm excited to see what the future holds.
Also, I'm right there with you on that, Cole. I also really love the booster packs, the commander precons for all of these different IPs. And the other thing, the main reason why I like having these full sets for them is because of those synergies that can be better designed for the cards. As to where if you had the secret layers, they are a little bit more independently designed for just the
Mm,
few cards that you choose,
mhm.
as opposed for a full set, you can really work with the synergies within all 100 cards in the set.
That's I think I like that too because you're right. If you took any of the secret layer stuff, if we look at, I don't know, Street Fighter, I mean, none of you're not fitting all of those in the same deck. So odds are you're taking one of them, and that's your commander, because they also all play very differently. But if you go to a Lord of the Rings, I mean, you could build 100 card deck that is all Lord of the Rings just decked out. And that's an advantage you have in a set that you don't have. 5, 6 card secret layer.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, because you're trying to, in a secret layer, encapsulate the entire series in just a few cards. Whereas in a set, you can really pay attention to the smaller characters, and you can make fans a lot happier because you can kind of appeal to that fan service. Like, if we got a secret layer, what are the odds that you think we would see Bill the Pony? Secret layer for Lord of the Rings. You're not gonna get Bill Ferny, the Bree swindler, or all these like just absolutely outrageous cards that at least provide fun space to build decks and go all out on your insane horse tribal that got a lot of support in Lord of the Rings.
Okay,
um
okay, but first off, let's be realistic here, right? If in Ixalan, the very next set, if they slotted Bill Ferny, Bree Swindler right into that set, I would be none the wiser because I have no idea who Bill freaking Ferny is. I've never heard of the guy. I don't, like, for all I know, he's just another Baldur's Gate, love interest that could be flying around in that game.
well, regardless, when you see his ability, you'd absolutely flip out. I do think we talked about him on our Lord of the Rings
Mhm.
underused commanders, and he's underused for very good reasons. So
I do have one last question for you guys, and then we're gonna hop off to a quick break. Now, something I didn't even think about till we started talking about this. So Universes Beyond so far has been completely restricted to Commander because when they add them into sets, those like set within a set are Commander exclusive, more or less. The secret layers are Commander exclusive. Will we ever see it enter a standard rotation?
Hmm. Very interesting. As somebody who has only played standard maybe once or twice,
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know how those cards would really even translate beyond commander into regular standard. So I'm not sure if they would have the same impact in a standard game as they do in commander.
Well, I think so. I think you have to look at it like this, right? Like you could put those cards into a standard deck and have the same impact because they're mechanically unique. I'm sure you could find maybe not every card, but you could find some within Lord of the Rings that would fit in a deck. But from a marketing standpoint, I mean, do you think Wizards of the Coast wants their world champion to win and not be holding like Jace or something, but it's holding up like, and here's Optimus Prime? Like I don't know that you want that to be your poster child on the tournament scene.
Any publicity is good publicity. I think to some extent, a level of the ridiculousness would attract people in and say, "Hey, how's that guy?" There used to be a Transformers card game, so it just kind of brings in a
I'm
diverse
pretty
perspective.
sure Wizards is actually the publisher of the Transformers card game
Well, there you
because
go.
Hasbro owns the rights to Transformers, I believe. And also, I'm gonna rebuttal your all press is good press because the very first topic we talked about on the very first episode on here was about the Pinkertons being sent over to somebody's house, and I don't think that was really great press for Wizards of the Coast. I mean,
Well,
they're
hey, we're
still
still doing
raking
a
in the
podcast
cash.
about it.
They're still raking in the cash, so I guess it wasn't that bad. You think that guy, by the way, just side tangent, you think that guy still plays Magic?
I
Or
hope
can
he
he not
would.
pick up the deck because his fingers are busted up?
I think the PTSD that you get from the Pinkertons busting down your door would probably turn you away from ever wanting to open up a booster pack again.
All right, guys. So we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break and leave it at there. Hopefully, you make it back to us after the break with all your digits intact because you did not open any illicit street date product. But when we get back, we're gonna talk about possibly the future of Universes Beyond, where we think is gonna go, where we hope it's gonna go, and all that good stuff. But we will catch you after a quick water break. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out with us through the break. We're back and we're talking about Universes Beyond still. So before the break, we talked a little bit about what it is, how we've kind of all feel about it. But what we did not talk about is where it's going from here. And we're going to kick it off from today. And the real reason we brought Erica on is because while Cole and I are hyper nerdy, mostly Cole, I'm one suave dude.
Whoa.
But but Erica is our group aficionado on all things Doctor Who and the Whoniverse and doctors in general. She's just like physicians. She's got them covered. Doctor Who, Doctor Seuss, just et cetera, et cetera. Any other doctors? House is a doctor.
Dr.
Great
Oh,
guy.
I
Great.
George
love
Clooney
House.
played a doctor.
All very
Um,
factual, Corey. All very factual, yes.
but today marks the release of a Doctor Who in the Magic Universe. So Erica, like, as a Doctor Who fan, like, what resonates to you out of the set? Like, for me, who's not Doctor Who versed, like, what should I be looking for? What should I be gravitating towards?
Absolutely. So for me, I am mostly excited to see all the different doctors, the companions. I briefly talked about it earlier, but insane combinations that you can make with companions and doctors are just going to be incredibly exciting. Another thing that I'm really excited about is the planes, the different planes that are going to be incorporated, um, that are so unique to the Doctor Who universe.
Mm,
Um, and just being able to add that to the game and all the fun things that they talk about. But as far as
Sure.
Doctor Who goes, I'm very excited about it. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Not to cut you off real quick, but just for everyone who's listening, just so you guys are grasping in on it. So as far as the planes, she doesn't mean they're all mono white, but they are bringing planes chase back once again for Doctor Who. I know I've seen at least one new planes. I believe there are a couple other unique ones to this set. But planes chase went what, Cole, you can correct me, probably 12, 15 years between visits before they finally reappeared earlier this year.
Right. It was about a decade, quite a long time of no, not really planeswalking, even though we're all supposedly planeswalkers.
Yeah, so planes are back. So out of the decks, so there's 4 decks. They all span some aspect of the different doctors. Like I don't know exactly where the cutoffs are. I think it's Doctor One through Doctor something. Let's say 5. I don't know what it is.
15.
Yeah, sure. And then so there's 3 Doctor decks, and then there's one like villainous deck. All the doctors also come with their companions, and the companions have basically partner, but just for doctors. It's like doctor's companion or something like that. So it's
Correct.
sort of like Friends Forever, which is partner but restricted down to specific things within a card pool.
And
But
I
what
did
deck
really
are
quick want to
you?
mention on the Doctor's Companion. You can have two companions, two commanders if the other one is a doctor. But you cannot have like a changeling have this effect. Like you can't run Morit of the Frost and benefit from having a Doctor's Companion. To be a Time Lord Doctor, you have to only be a Time Lord Doctor.
But I believe that Morophon is a doctor. He's got a very like PhD look about him. Are you sure? We sure he's not a doctor? Like at least a literary doctor,
I'd
right?
like
He's
to
got a
see
lot
the
of
degree.
hands.
Show me the degree.
Cole's like, I'll
But
be the
what?
judge of that.
But Erica, which deck jumps out to you, and like why?
So I am getting the Timey Wimey set, and that one
Mhm.
has the ninth, the 10th, and the 11th Doctor. And the reason I got that one is because those are the doctors that I really resonate with. Those are the doctors that I, saw all the episodes for. I absolutely know the storyline behind them, and just really love getting to see that get printed into these cards. So I'm very excited for those. I know some of the other decks have some of the older doctors, and actually I think Cole got the villains one. So
Believe it or not, I actually just clicked Amazon submit on that order, so I
Mhm.
did pick up the villain deck.
yes.
As the villain, of our play group, naturally, that's where you directed yourself towards. So the ninth, 10th, and 11th doctors. That's David Tennant,
yes.
Matt Smith. Is that the 11th one?
Yes. Matt Smith is
I'm
the
going
11th
on. I'm going
Doctor.
on a limb here.
Yes.
Now, the one that jumps out to me is, I believe it's the 13th Doctor. Have you seen the one where he's like on a tank with an electric guitar? That's the best one. He's
Okay.
it's so it's one of the older Doctors, but he's literally like older as in he looks
Oh yes,
physically
yes, yes.
older.
Okay, gotcha. Yes.
But he's just riding the front of a tank with an electric guitar. Now,
Mhm.
when they reprint that to Universes Within, will I get that as like, I don't know, Rurik Thar just shredding hardcore while riding on like Shurikai? Is that how we're reprinting this?
Yeah, as so I'm not too sure. I mean, I would assume so. Maybe that's the one.
Yep, it's locked in. Got it.
It's
Got it.
locked in.
100%
Yes.
confirmed. Confirmed.
yes. Very much so. I mean, these cards look really incredible, lore wise, in regards to like what's going on in the show. Just translates so well to these cards, and yeah, I just think that they're gonna play very well.
Okay. So since we're talking about Universes Beyond, I mean, if you saw those same 4 decks, they did the exact same thing, but they weren't Doctor Who, but they were just, generic Magic the Gathering creature, whatever. It was Cranko riding a tank shredding. Like, would that if you walk into your Target or or you're hopping on Amazon, would that jump out to you the same way, or
No, I don't
just
think
the Doctor
so.
Who aspect? Hmm.
Yeah, it would definitely be the Doctor Who aspect just because you kind of have that connection to each of the characters, and you understand their motivation, and you understand why they're doing what they're doing, or why they're reacting in a certain way, or even a lot of these locations are just so iconic to the show that you look at it. Like, I know personally for me, like, I'm very excited about the Ood sphere because I love Oods so much. And so I think that I'm just naturally really attracted to wanting to play the plane chase at the Ood sphere, or wanting to play the TARDIS as a vehicle, and just having these very great, like, very cool cards do things that we've seen happen on TV. If they weren't part of Doctor Who, I don't know that I would have the same interest for them. They
Hmm.
are all really great mechanics and they're very interesting, but I just don't know that I would have the explicit interest of wanting to focus as much as I do with them as Doctor Who cards.
And what pray tell is an Ood that like you make a sphere of Ood?
So the Ood sphere is the name of the plane, and so
Mhm.
it's a planet of these aliens who at first sight you think that they are terrifying and a little scary,
Sure.
but they're just very, like, gentle, and they were actually enslaved, and they have their hearts in their hands, and they're constantly keeping their hearts in their hand, and actually the doctor ends up, like, saving them and freeing them from their slavery, which is cool.
What's weird is that seems like such a high level metaphor, that like I'm enslaved and I'm just carrying my heart in my hand. Like it seems like somehow someone made Shakespeare and Star Trek and they just were like, no, no, we'll cram it together till it works and we'll let it run for
Right.
60 years. um,
I have a
so I mean,
question for you,
so lay it
Erica.
on me.
Yeah.
Well, I want to
Oh,
know,
sure, sure.
do you have a favorite doctor?
Yes, I do actually.
Wait, wait,
um
wait.
yeah.
Before you answer, we're
Okay.
gonna guess. So Cole, you
Okay.
should know better than me, right? But I'm gonna guess. I'm gonna hedge my bets. So I'm either gonna say it's David Tennant because I mean that's a sexy looking doctor. Let's be real here. He's hilarious. He's sexy. He's got it all. He's a whole package. Or it's that weird older one that has the colorful ascot.
Older as in older generation, or a new, like a
Yes, older
newer
generationally.
doctor? Hmm.
I think he's like the third, fourth, maybe. He's got crazy hair, big ascot, big personality. Cole, what's your guess?
Well, I gotta say, I kind of have to my you know my if I'm guessing, I'm cheating because I know what the answer is, and I
Is the
know
big
that her
ascot.
favorite doctor is the first doctor from the very beginning of the show. No, it's no, who nobody. That's nobody's favorite doctor.
What?
I'm gonna lock in David Tennant.
He's the whole package. Come on, Erica. Look, you can start nodding now. It's okay.
Okay, Corey, do you have a guess?
Yeah, it's David Tennant
Oh, David Tennant.
and
Okay.
or Ascot Man.
No, you both are correct. It's David Tennant, but for a good reason, not just because he's funny and good looking, but because so he is the first doctor that actually used well, not used, but, like, first got into, like, his human emotions and really, started feeling like feeling the connections he had with his companions. It's the first time in the whole series that you see him really getting close to people, not just seeing them as companions to, like, help him in his journey, but, like,
Mhm.
also, like, you could see that he has a love for the people that he's sharing his lifetime with. And that's just very special because he is the last of his kind. He will never encounter another Time Lord. And so for him to really just connect with these people that he is sharing his life with was just very magical. I think it was very
So
impactful.
the humanity aspect of it. Um, but also, David Tennant is, let's be honest, he's the whole package. Now,
He's very funny.
would you say it's the humanity aspect from the writing, or do you think he was just the first Doctor that could act that they figured out how to cast?
Well,
Shots fired.
yeah, shots fired for sure.
I'm sorry, Ascot Jelly Bean loving one that
Right.
is somewhere between number 3 and 7.
Yeah, so, I think David Tennant is an incredible actor. I think he also did a great job in Harry Potter. But I also think it had a lot to do with the writing. The writers did an incredible job at connecting those emotions to somebody who is not only the last of his kind, but he really has all of existence in his hand and it's very fragile and he has to make decisions that will either keep the whole universe alive or will destroy all of existence and all of time and all like everything that ever existed would just not because of him.
Yeah, and I think that's important too. I mean, as someone who has not watched the show, I will say that knowing the time frame that he was the Doctor, like the actual chronological time, I mean, I know that he was a big buffer from taking it from, hey, it's like weird, campy 50s and 60s to like a more modern audience.
Mhm.
And the fact that it doesn't hurt that he's a good actor and that he can also kind of play into more like modern sensibilities. Because I would say it's almost like the James Bond role, right? Where they've had, I don't know, 10 actors play James Bond now, some better than others, but each one has to kind of resonate with his own timeline or time period.
Right. Absolutely. I
But
do agree with that. Yeah. And it's interesting too because um resonating with your own timeline also means, maybe expressing things that you wouldn't necessarily expect that character to be feeling or to be acting or to be doing. And so it's just like seeing that change in them is like them growing as a person or like them growing as a character and like the plot just thickening, which is really great.
okay, well, hammering it back into Magic.
Yes.
So when you're looking at this deck, did you pick the deck because you were like, "Hey, it's got my favorite Doctor or my favorite story arc in it," or did you pick it because you looked at the 4 decks and that one just kinda did the mechanic that you thought was the most fun?
So it was the first. It was definitely like
Mhm.
it had, and I David Tennant is my favorite Doctor, but Matt Smith did a great job, and Chris, who was the ninth Doctor, also did a phenomenal job. And when it comes to the cards, like I thought to myself, I could read what each one of these commanders do and choose quote unquote like the most interesting or the best one out of the bunch. But if
Mhm.
that's what my thought process was, then I could have just extended it out to all the potential commander um or like all the potential commanders in all of Magic beyond just Doctor
Sure.
Who. So my
Mhm.
thought was like, let me get what I most am connected to and what I most love about Doctor Who, and it is the ninth, 10th, and 11th Doctor.
And which one are you running as your commander?
Great question. I think I'm gonna try to run it as it comes first because I like to get a feel for how is it intended to play. So I'm definitely gonna play with the 10th Doctor as my commander and then have Rose Tyler be the partner.
Okay. Um, so I mean, we talked a little bit about or we talked a good a bit, I think, about how much the lore to this whole Doctor Who thing, you know, speaks to you, and that's why this set's very important to you.
Mhm.
Now again, I'll play devil's advocate to the whole universe is beyond thing. One of the biggest arguments I hear on the flip side of the fence is that people hold, the Magic the Gathering, like in-universe lore very sacred to them. If it's something they grew up with and they're used to seeing their favorite characters as planeswalkers and that kind of thing, they almost feel like having these these you know outside the universes or universes beyond characters almost as like watering down their lore. What would you say to a player that feels that way? I mean, do you think that those feelings hold water, or how would you kind of address somebody that had those feelings?
Yeah, so I think that at the end of the day, the most important part about magic is the rest of that name, the gathering, right?
It's the colon. The colon's the most important part.
It's the colon, yes.
Yeah.
No, but it's the gathering part, and I think that although the magic lore is important and it's incredible that there is this very fantastical world with wizards and witches and and creatures and all these different things that we know and love. I think it's great, but I also, much like the idea of love, it doesn't have a maximum. It doesn't have a limit. Just because you have a love for that, it doesn't mean that there can't be a love for everything else. And it may not be what you resonate with, but it's what's helping someone else feel that same intensity that you are feeling through the MTG lore.
Mm. And then Cole, of course, has been silent this whole time because he's just fuming. He's like, if I ever turn on Doctor Who and I see Jace walking through it, oh, I'm throwing my TV out the window.
The only Universe Beyond product that I love is the pizza rolls, baby. I want to buy Jace pizza rolls, Hot Pockets, get me IHOP, Liliana IHOP, I'm just kidding, of course. I really like the
Liliana
Universe.
from DiGiorno.
I really like the Universe Beyond products. I'm a fan of increasing the amount of magic that we have, but I can also see the perspective of somebody who kind of gets taken out of magic typically has like a high fantasy feel to it, and to be ripped out of that fantasy realm when your opponent has a board that has Optimus Prime, Godzilla, and the Three Musketeers on it, it obviously
Uh,
takes you a kind of out of that immersion.
well,
Now,
first off, that is a fantasy because we know that those are not all going to be in the same colors, so they won't all be on the board at the same time.
well, just wait until you see my 5-color, Princess Bride, Jurassic Park deck that is gonna blow you away. But basically, I can see the other side, but also at the end of the day, it's just a game. To what extent immersion is broken is as much as you want to put into it. Like if you're that dead set on keeping the game closed and in that MTG world, then just don't play with people who use those cards. And tell me if you have a fun time limiting your player base down from 99% of the Magic world to 5% of the Magic world. It's just they're not going to stop producing Universe Beyond products because of the success. I mean, Lord of the Rings was one of the biggest products because it brought in so many people from all walks of life that loved Lord of the Rings, maybe had heard of Magic the Gathering or hadn't heard of it, but were interested in giving it a try because the topic was familiar for them. So I see a future where they're pumping out Universe Beyond product just as much as they're pumping out their own original IP.
Yeah, I think the concern that I hear mostly in the community, and I get it from like a certain degree, is if you're into Magic, like, hey, this is the IP I grew up and I love or whatever. Um, I can kind of see where people are hesitant to not want to sit down to a game that's sort of like, oh, this isn't Mario, this is Super Smash Brothers, or this is Marvel versus Capcom, where there's 90 different characters from all over the place, and like, I can understand people not wanting to sit down and go, well, I'm playing Transformers and you're playing Street Fighter and you're playing Gandalf and you're playing Doctor Who, and it's just the weirdest looking pod ever.
Like
But
to a non-omniscient viewer, it might not even be a game of Magic. I don't see any Magic cards there.
yeah, but I think we can also all agree that at this point, I mean, if you're upset about Universes Beyond as a whole, you listen, you kind of just got to get over it because that train has long left the station. And we're talking right now about Doctor Who, but let's look, right down the line here. So we got Doctor Who just before New Year's this year. So we're already mid-October. So between the end of October, November, and December, we've got Doctor Who. We've got a Lord of the Rings holiday launch that has new cards. We've got Jurassic Park. Then next year, and we've got The Evil Dead. We've got Princess Bride, all that stuff. Then next year we've got Fallout. Then we've got Assassin's Creed upcoming. We've got Final Fantasy. Like they already have so much coming down into the pipeline that those are things that are already in development. We're not even talking about secret layers they haven't announced yet. We're not talking about, after Final Fantasy, what their next big IP they're going to rope in for a full set is going to be. So I think you kind of just have to live with that fact. And if you decide you want to exclude it from your play group, I mean, heck, that's what Rule Zero's for, and that's what home rules and home brewing's for.
Well, and I'll tell you, there's actually an alternative format called pre-DH, which is like EDH, but it's a card pool limited to cards before the first official commander products. So
I thought
if you're so
that's
against the future coming in, there are ways to play it, like you're in a time capsule, like you are using your sonic screwdriver to go back in time a little bit.
Good call.
I could have sworn what you were going to say is if you're so against it, there is an alternative format. It's called Yu-Gi-Oh, and you can get lost. I was 100% sure that's where we were about to go.
I'd like it to be stated on the record, I was not endorsing anybody to play Yu-Gi-Oh.
Not when there's Lorcana, when there's Digimon, when there's Flesh and Blood, when there's Vampire the Masquerade.
I've heard One
when
Piece is
there's-
pretty good.
I have heard One Piece is pretty good. Ironically, a little off topic, but TCG Player just released their list from last month of like the top selling products, and One Piece is like sold just as much as Wilds of Eldraine did on TCG Player.
I almost got us a couple of the starter decks just to mess around with. For One Piece, it's supposed to be really fun.
Wow.
When we went to Gen Con, I tried so hard to get into a One Piece demo just to like see how it's played, and all their demos were taken up, but instead they offered to show us like some kind of fairy ship game. Like they were fairies, but they were also like battleships. It was very weird. We ended up not doing it, but I'll say the art looked fantastic. It looked really great art.
Well, I have a question for the both of you.
Sure.
If we were to come up with kind of like an IP, and give a Universe Beyond to a franchise of your choice, what would it be, and what level would you want it printed at? Like if it was just going to be a secret layer and only a couple cards, or if it were going to be a full set by itself, what would you want?
Yeah, so for me, I'm gonna have to go Harry Potter. I think the wizarding world of Harry Potter is so phenomenal, and it has already transformed so many lives, and it would be just such a incredible and direct way to immerse yourself in that world that everybody knows and loves. And I think that magic really is like being a wizard and a witch, and you watch the movies, you read the books, and you want nothing more than to be a part of it, and this is a really great opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I
And
like that too. I think I was say with Harry Potter, I think Harry Potter is something a lot of like current Magic players grew up on. I mean, Harry Potter was coming out the first books when I was like 7 years old. So I grew up through the whole like Harry Potter being released kind of at the same stage, like when Harry was 15? I was 15, and that's when that book came out. I think the biggest issue with Harry Potter would be overcoming Harry Potter's author and her current stance on things. But I think that's something kind of in the same vein as like Lord of the Rings or Final Fantasy, which is upcoming, which is you could easily, if you sat down, you could easily come up with 300 to 400 cards that are mechanically unique, that are super flavorful, and you could send it right off to the printers.
Absolutely. And going along with in regards to what you said about the author, I believe it was the cast of Harry Potter that said that, at the end of the day, the books are for the people who read them and not the
Mhm.
person who wrote it. And, I think that although very important at the end of the day, like it has been a huge part of so many people's lives and like has helped so many people, go into this incredible world. So I do see that and I definitely do hear that.
Mm.
Um but I think it would be a really great translation into Magic. I think it would be really cool to see full commander decks and booster packs and all of that.
There's just, in
So
that
here,
and the 7 book series, there's so much room for exploration. I mean, obviously, you have the houses, Gryffindor, Ravenclaw, Hufflepuff, Slytherin, but you also have a wide cast of villains and the characters that are pretty developed, and people, around the world love them. And if you talk about a well-known IP, I mean, Harry Potter is one of the, it has, Universal Studios. It has a full like theme parks dedicated to it. It's something that's known all around the world, and it has the potential to bring a lot of people in to Magic just because it has such a large fan base.
yeah, I agree. Like I said, I think the biggest struggle is going to be separating it from the author. But that's any kind of art, right? You have to separate the artist from the art. And the biggest issue with J.K. Rowling is the fact that, frankly, she's still alive because C.S. Lewis, also a weird guy. But guess what? He's been dead for like 100 years, so it's easier to kind of separate Alice in Wonderland away from his weirdness. You know? Now for me, on a different one, I personally think Studio Ghibli would be like ripe for the picking. I also think it would be very difficult to license because of it's very closely tied with Disney as far as publishing in the US. But I think, hey, we talked about fantasy immersion. It hits fantasy immersion. It definitely hits a lot of the spirit kind of aspects. It hits a lot of mystical aspects, and I can almost go through and identify enough cards for every single color that you can make a full balanced set. I feel like.
100%. I mean, I think there's so many movies that people have fallen in love with and have, want to learn more about the characters, like the little back side characters, like
Mhm.
the soot sprites, and the Master Hamachi, and the who runs
The boiler
the
room.
boiler room. Like
Could
there's
you
so much room there.
Could you imagine a Kamaji commander and then he makes like little 0/1 soot sprite tokens?
That'd be very cute.
Also, I think it would play well in the fact that we all know that what Wizards really loves to do is make alternate border and print styles with every set. And they could easily make a bunch of those out of Ghibli, where it's like this one's stained glass, this one's watercolor, this one's
Sketch.
landscapes. Yeah, exactly. They go bananas for that kind of stuff. Um, but I think that about wraps up our discussion on universes beyond because Cole, we don't even need to know what universe you care about.
Well, I did want to mention, I think, we've seen in the past several anime printings of cards as an alternative art style. So I
Mhm.
want to see, let's dip our toes into My Hero Academia. I want to see a Death Note secret lair,
Ooh, Death Note would be really good.
Cowboy Bebop, some of these like classic animes. Give me a Samurai Champloo secret lair, and I'll buy 100 copies of it. Uh,
You know what? I just thought would be a great secret lair too. Like just a 5-card secret lair,
Oh,
TMNT, because I'm pretty sure Hasbro could get those rights pretty easily. You do one of each turtle, a shredder, and a master splinter.
yeah. So you're gonna have to do at least a 6-card secret layer on that one, and you're gonna
Well, at
need.
least a 7 because I need a rock steady bebop like combo, like a Will and Rowan on the same card kind of deal.
I need a pizza that you can equip.
But that wraps up our conversation on Universes Beyond. So, question of the week, card of the week, and then we're going to be hopping on out of here. Question of the week this week comes from Daniel via Twitter or X or whatever they're calling it these days. So thank you, Daniel, for giving us a question. And his question is: a few episodes ago, we spoke about Lorcana and how there are a lot of similarities between multiple card games. Do you think these are intentional similarities, or do you think they're accidental similarities?
Well, there's only so much that you can do mechanically. Like people are trying to innovate and come up with good ideas for new mechanics, but there's so many tried and true things that just have to come through, like rush and haste, and Lorcana and magic. It's like it's just a simple enough. It's almost like convergent evolution. Like all games, all great minds think alike, and you kind of get some of that similar inspiration leads to it. It's flattery. It's not necessarily stealing, because it's a good mechanic and you want to kind of put it in your own game. It's really successful.
Yeah, I mean, I think you look at the core things that every game's going to have, right? Especially TCGs, which are card draw, some kind of resource management, whether that's ramping in Magic or inking in Lorcana, and usually some kind of interaction like removal or combat or something like that. So a lot of those are going to go to the same well, like play this spell, draw a card. Like that's these are common effects. Now some of it I do think is intentional. Like especially if you look at games that are from the same publishing house, a lot of times you'll see them repurpose the same mechanics because they know it works. Like Hearthstone uses mana; they just straight up as mana, and the cards have very similar designs and stuff like that. That's 100% intentional, you know. And sometimes these things just happen.
Also, I want to mention that Disney doesn't do anything accidentally. Everything is intentional.
Well, I think that's true. That's very true. But I think where part of this question comes from is with Lorcana, there was a lot of talk at the time because the head developer for Lorcana was at a different game studio developing a separate game. Then when he went to Ravensburger to work on Lorcana, allegedly, according to the lawsuits that I don't believe have been settled yet, a lot of those game mechanics from the original game he was working on have appeared in Lorcana that he technically could not have taken with him. But it also comes down to like if you have that idea implanted in your head and then you jump to a different game studio or something, I mean, you're still going to have that idea, and if you think it's a good idea, I don't know I don't know how well you can really tie and say that he stole the idea or he just realized it was a good idea to have certain mechanics and it worked for this game. Who knows?
Right.
I will say from personal experience, so I have worked on a game for a good stretch now, like kind of off and on as a side project. And one of the things I mean, I was talking to Cole about this when we were looking at this question. So, just as an example of how these things randomly happen, right? So, in Magic the Gathering, there's a card called Alchemist's Apprentice. It's one in a blue for a 1/1. A creature, it's sacrifice Alchemist's Apprentice, draw a card. Well, guess what? The very first card I made for my card game, like a decade plus before I ever got into Magic, and ironically, like 5 years before this card was ever made, is Merlin's Apprentice. It's 2 resource for a 1 attack, 1 defense creature that you sacrifice to draw a card. Now, was I ripped off? Yeah, probably. Probably. And you should see my lawsuit as I'm preparing it, but maybe not.
Unless you're his lawyers, we advise you cannot see his lawsuit.
That's
But hey, Daniel, thank you for the question. If you guys have any questions for us, obviously leave them, send them out. We're always looking for good ones, and I mean, hey, I'm even looking for bad ones. I'll take a question and we'll answer it as best as possible on the show. Card of the week. So normally this is Cole's burden to bear, but we thought since Erika is our guest, we would let Erika talk about her favorite card of all time or of this week, whichever it lands on, or hey, maybe a card you hate. So Erika, what is the card of the week?
Okay, so the card of the week is Displayed Dinosaur. It's 5 colorless and 2 green pips, so a total of 7. And it reads as a historic permanent enters the battlefield under your control, it becomes a 7/7 dinosaur creature in addition to its other types. So, historic being artifacts, legendaries, sagas, and and
Artifacts?
creatures and art yes, and artifacts.
Mhm.
But it is a 7/7 creature dinosaur that goes in. And it's just really cool. It's just really interesting because it can create treasure tokens or clues or planeswalkers. And when they enter the battlefield, they are also now a 7/7 dinosaur that you can use to attack. And it's just pretty impressive, really cool because now you're turning things that are coming in into and weaponizing them.
Finally, they
Yeah,
found a
I
way to
think.
break treasure tokens.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it's a cool card. It's one of those cards that's like it's super strong when you think about it, but at the same token, it's so like memeable that everyone's focused on how funny it is. But like I said, Cole, you could literally, I mean, what hit with ancient copper dragon, roll a d20, and let's say you hit the jackpot and you land on a 20, and it's like, well, I have 27 sevens entering the battlefield.
That you can also
And
sacrifice for mana. I mean, to
yeah, because
sign
they
me
still
up.
have the same power. I think the best usage I've seen of this so far is people talking about putting them in their food decks because obviously food got a huge buff with like Lord of the Rings and things of that nature, and just the thought of having 7/7 dino nuggets like entering the battlefield, you could eat them for life, or you could stomp people to death.
It seems like a very versatile card. I can see why this was the card of the week. Definitely really strong, and it's in green, so you can probably ramp into it pretty easy. I'm expecting to see this a lot faster than turn 7.
Yeah. But that wraps up today's episode. If you want to meet up with any of us, so this episode is coming out on the 13th. However, the following week, so the 20th through the 22nd, if you want to meet myself, Cole, or Erica, because Erica will be there too, we'll all be at Command Fest Orlando, so you can swing by and say hello. Hopefully, I haven't gotten them in the mail yet, I'll be honest with you, but we should have some goodies to hand out. So if you challenge us to a game, you can play Cole and I in a game of Magic, or you can play Erica, but she is a bit of a card shark, so kind of tread those waters lightly.
I
But we
like
will
to
have goodies.
win.
She likes to win. I've never seen somebody consistently top deck fast mana that's not even in her deck when she shuffles it. Like she shuffles it and suddenly it's like, oops, I didn't know I had all these jeweled lotuses. Where did they come from? We might even give Erica some goodies to hand out. So if you catch any of us, feel free to stop, say hello, and catch a game. Also, hey, Erica, thank you for joining us. One day when Cole is old, broke down, and I'm just sick of him, you can come in and replace him anytime you want.
Excellent. Thank you guys so much for having me on the podcast. This has been a lot of fun.
um, but if you want to catch up with any of us, you can find Cole and by extension Erica. You can find them at LoveAndMana.MTG on all those platforms. They like to put up photo shoots of them posing with angel decks and things of that nature. You can find me at Sleevecard, or you can reach out to the podcast directly at UrCastPod or Contact.UrCast at gmail.com. But thank you for making it to the end of the episode. Have yourselves a magical Friday, and we will see you next week.
Bye, guys.